I'm Dorte Mandurup. I'm the founder of Dorte Mandurup. We are situated in Copenhagen. We are now around 85 employees, and we work mainly from Copenhagen, but we work also around Europe. Well, I think to me and to the office, the notion of context in a broader sense is king or queen. So we try always to work directly with the context. It's a whole body of understanding. It's not only the topographical understanding and the formal understanding of the land or material understanding. It's also an understanding of the cultural relationship with the land. So to me, I think nature and culture is interrelated. It's very important to understand that you have hardly any nature without interference from humans. In a sense, also the human culture is very much related to the landscape around them. And I think that is mainly the understanding that I have when we do work in a landscape. When we work with the Wadden Sea Center, the landscape, of course, is about the horizontality and it's about the tide that is changing every day. And it's also about the birds feeding in the landscape, but it's also about the culture of the Vikings who's been on the site since the 800s. So everything is intertwined. I think there's a new interest in a direct relationship to nature. So I think that is, I mean, we've had, I guess, a movement of, I guess, very flashy, you could almost say. It's been very much about architecture, putting a lot of attention to itself, you could say. And I think in that sense, right now that seems to be almost ridiculous to work with this very self-centered architecture, and because now we all know that we need to think in a different way, and I think that's why there's an interest in a much more connected architecture. So there's also a history, there's a topography, there's a scale, there's a lot of history that we need to interconnect, and we need to, in a way, see ourselves as a continuation of what's there, instead of being something that is calling upon attention. It's a kind of finding a balance, I think, because it's not that I'm not interested in the formal approach, or I do think that when you work with architecture in a place, it needs to somehow change the place, but it needs to change it in a natural way, or you need to see the new in connection with the existing as a natural continuation. It was initiated because the Wadden Sea was appointed a UNESCO heritage area. So there's an ecosystem it's not like impressive when you go there. The first time it's not like Ayers Rock or any of these amazing UNESCO protected places. It's quite humble. Well, I think when you come there in the wintertime, I think the first time we came was kind of a really harsh, I think it was in March, so everything was gray and there's hardly any trees out there. But the trees that are there, they don't have leaves. It's really melancholy in a lot of ways. But there's also this notion of the sea that is changing all the time because of the tide. Sometimes it's land, sometimes it's sea. So what I think was the most important thing to me here was to understand that when you get out there, it's really quite amazing, and you feel very embraced by this landscape. In the first sight, it's really harsh and very not very friendly in a way, but then when you've been there for a while, it starts to grow on you, and you understand that you can somehow be part of it. So there's of course a quite beautiful relationship to the land. When you harvest the reeds here, they're almost yellow when you start thatching, and then they become gray. So the patina of the material kind of goes into almost like the colors of the lands, and that's also the intention, is that the building is somehow folded from the landscape, or from this horizontal surface. You get this quite large farmhouse, and by using the diagonal lines instead of rectangular, it's much more like part of the landscape, and also it works very well with the wind. When you have very horizontal surfaces, you have a lot of wind, you have the sea. So by having the horizontal surfaces, we managed to make the wind pass over the interior courtyard, so you have a lee, or you have a protected microclimate inside here, which is in Danish a very big quality, where you actually get wind protected and a little bit warmer. It was a competition, and it was initiated by a couple of foundations, important foundations in Denmark, the Møller Foundation and the Eldania Foundations. They proposed an extension to this existing Wadden Sea Center, which was quite small, and which was a pastiche, you could almost say, of a farmhouse built in the 90s. So the whole idea with the Wadden Sea Center is to, in a way, embrace the existing building. A lot of people think the whole building is new, but there's about a third of the building that is an old building. So when you look at the project, you will see that there is kind of an interior part of the building that is the old part, and then we have embraced the existing building with a new building. And then I think the more you understand also about the Vikings, that were not just warriors, they were also farmers. Understanding how they were building, because of it's actually all buildings in the Viking Age was put on almost like a ground foundation out of earth, because there's been a lot of flooding and stuff. So there's this feeling of this open plain and these farmhouses out there that was kind of lifted a little bit up from the landscape. And what we did was to, in a way, enlarge that notion of a farmhouse. So if you go there, you will notice that it's really large scale. So in a way, it's a little bit surreal when you meet it, because it's very difficult to grab how big the building is. So you had the existing farmhouse, and then we prolonged and extended that, and then we put this new farmhouse on the outside. So there's actually 2 layers of farmhouses. The thatch material has been used in the area since the Vikings, and in a way it's a very simple material. It's reeds, of course, and you harvest it in these wetlands close by. So there's of course a lot of knowledge around that, and there's still craftsmen. They're quite small. They're like an uncle and his son and his they work on the old farmhouses that are still thatched on the roof. So this whole knowledge that they have is not really written down, or so what we did with the Wadden Sea Center was trying to get into standards of how do we do this. On the west coast of Jutland, they do it a little different than from the east coast. So can we combine this knowledge and try to make some standards? And actually, in the end, with the Wadden Sea Center, there was one that won the bid, but he had to hire in all the other guys, because there's not all that many people, and it's a really big house. But we got a lot of help from the thatchers, and we also did a lot of tests, because cladding the walls has not been done in Denmark. They've done it in the Netherlands, and so we went to the Netherlands also to study how they did this. And then the overhang is kind of a new experiment. The thatchers that we worked with was really experimental, and they really wanted to push the craft forward. So originally we wanted to thatch the old building as well, but technically you need to have a certain quite steep inclination on the roof to use the thatched material. So because the existing building's inclination on the roof was not perfect for the thatched material, we decided to use Rubinia, that we've been using many times, and we know it acts really well. You don't need to treat it with anything, so it's very oily, it's very hard. It withstands water very well. So we tested that before, and we knew it would go grey, it would last, very well in this wet climate. So that was the decision. And then of course the Rubinia goes grey, the thatch material goes grey, so everything kind of merges into one. Well, one of the very positive things is that the local communities has embraced the place very much. There's a community around the center called the Friends of the Wadden Sea Center, and they will actually come in and they will do a lot of the gardening on the interior in the interior of the courtyard. We have this tundra, which is where the birds are breeding in the summertime, and it needs a lot of tending, and so there's a local community around that, and there's been a very embracing and very positive atmosphere around it locally. So that's the sort of emotional part of it. And then of course there's the understanding of the importance of the Wadden Sea that so many people now get. They also go for walks out there. You can go for bird trips, you can go for oyster trips, and I'm very flattered and very happy when people come back. It's not architects, it's just, you know, laymen going to the place. They come back and they said, I just felt so emotional with this place, or I had to touch the wall. Or I think that's quite surprising to me, because, you know, as architects we're always relating to each other and kind of trying to create this sublime, or we discuss in a very sort of sophisticated ways. I've been very touched by people being touched by the place, and it's a very sort of one-to-one, it's a sensuous emotional experience that they, you know, come back and say, I love this place, it just made me feel, you know, safe, or it made me feel whatever it made them feel. I think it changed a little bit my notion of architecture in the sense that I, you know, very immaturely when I was younger would think that architecture did not have to be understood by normal people. It was kind of something that we did for ourselves, right? So in a way, when I was younger, I would even think, you know, maybe it wasn't so good if it was popular, because then it wasn't advanced. I think I've changed, you know, with the Wadden Sea Center, my whole understanding of that is different now. I think it's really great if you can communicate something with everybody that is not a kind of academic and very direct in a way. So somehow you could be sensitive even though you're not part of this culture. The way I work is not to claim that I understand, but I do claim that I try to look at the context in a sensitive way, but also in a very thorough way. By being an outsider, sometimes you can also see things that you cannot see if you are sort of inside the culture. So in a way, it's an interpretation of what I understand. But I think there is a responsibility to be extremely thorough when you do that.